Hi everybody, Dr. Amy Spoelstra here, co-founder of the Brain Blossom program. Okay, so now that you're in the Brain Blossom program, let's talk a little bit about where all this work comes from and how it all fits together and why these exercises are important and what does it all mean based on the specific learning, developmental, behavioral, socialization challenges that your participant is having. So in order to really tackle that, we're going to do this in a series of videos. We're first going to start with understanding the basics of brain development. So what we know about brain development is that we aren't born with fully developed brains. We know that when we have a baby and they're born, they don't have whole brain processing. They don't come out having language, being able to run, being able to socialize, read, tell us their needs, all of that stuff. That's just not how that works. We know that babies are born, they have activity in all these different areas of their brain, just not real sophisticated processing. So when a baby is born, we understand that they're kind of in their primitive brain. They're functioning out of their brainstem. So we also know that it's really important to have appropriate sensory input, touch, light, love, sound, smells, taste, all of these different things that are coming into the brain, being fed to the brain in order for the brain to move through development. So here's what we also know. We know that there is a specific trajectory that the brain moves through development in. There's like an order in the way the brain moves through development. And that order is bottom up, back to front, inside out, and right to left. This is the way that the brain develops. We know that the brain has to be fed appropriate information in order for the brain to move through that development really efficiently. But we do know that we start with a real primitive brain and then we become more sophisticated. There's lots of complexity that happens during that development, pruning, migration. There's a lot that happens there. Synaptic connections are made, but the overall arching thing that I want everybody to understand or concept is that there's this trajectory, bottom up, back to front, inside out, right to left. I like to tell people, visualize it like a flower. The brain develops and opens up like a flower, and that's how we become fully developed, which gives us our tools to have appropriate communication, learning, socialization, development. Basically, being able to process and work and engage in our world. And so what we're after is understanding, are there any alterations in the way that a brain has moved through development? And what we find is that individuals with neuro-deflective disorders or behavioral, learning, socialization, and developmental challenges sometimes do have an alteration or something that has changed or affected the way the brain has moved through that bottom up, back to front, inside out, right to left development. And so that's what we do in the Brain Blossom program is we're looking for, hey, are there any alterations in the way that the brain has moved through development that have led an individual to be processing, learning from, and engaging in their world in a different way? And if there are, then we want to specifically go back and stimulate those areas that have been affected and create really strong, full, whole brain development or make that brain be really strong and resilient. And so we're going to go through this in multiple different curriculum videos coming up. But the first concept is understanding that we are not born with fully developed brains. We know that we have to move through this trajectory of brain development. Think about it like a flower, it has to open up. And there are some things that can affect the way the brain moves through development. We'll talk about those. And if that is the case and that does happen, that changes the way that we engage, learn, and integrate in our world. And that's what we're after. When we get to that and stop trying to just treat the symptoms of behavioral learning and socialization, we can see a lot of change and improvement oftentimes in the way that individuals engage and process and learn from their environment.